Welcome to MTG Friends. In this episode, we're going to be doing Commander deck tech for Doran the Siege Tower. We're calling this Doran Tower of Power. Alright, in this deck tech, we have these categories. We have the ramp, we have the big butts category, the removal section, the protection section, the draw, the shenanigans, the land segment. And then, of course, we have our budget section or the maybe board where you could swap in and out some of the cards on the side to your desires. All right, so let's start off with the commander itself. He is a 3-drop 05, and he is in black, green, white. And because he's a 3-drop, you're going to get him out very quickly. Each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. This is a super fun commander to play, and we have built the synergies and mechanics around that toughness rather than its power. And also the fact that it's in black, green, white gives us a very large stable of cards and synergies that we can pull from. So let's just jump right into the ramp section and start with, of course, a given, which is Arcane Signet. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's identity. Run this in every commander deck you have. Add white to your mana pool. Mana Dork in green. Birds of Paradise, of course. Chromatic Lantern. This is in here specifically because it's a 3-drop and you can add 1 mana of any color. And all lands you have are add 1 mana of any color. Great card when you're running more than dual colors in a commander deck. Elves of Deep Shadow, another mana dork that gives you black. Elvish Mystic gives you green. Fabral Elder, he is a Treefolk druid, and he also has the gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control, and for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So he is just a really great mana dork, and he's a Treefolk, which we have Treefolk synergies going on in this build. Farseek, it's a 2-drop that lets you go search for a swamp or a plains. Findlehorn Elves, another mana dork. Landwar Elves, mana dork. Nature's Lore, go grab what you need if it's a forest. Soul Ring, run it. Of course, you're going to run that. Talisman of Hierarchy for 2. You can add white or black, and it gives you 1 pain damage. Talisman of Resilience, black or green. Talisman of Unity, green or white. All right, still in ramp. This Treefolk, which is an 03 1-drop, lets you go search for a forest card. And we are already in the land section, even though this is labeled as sorcery, because it is technically also a sorcery. This is Agadeem's Awakening, just a very strong black card. It is a bolt land, so on the flip side of this, you can pay 3 and have it come in untapped, and it is a land that you can tap for black mana. It is not a swamp, to be clear. Not that that's relevant in this particular build. And its sorcery is return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creature cards that each have a different converted mana cost X or less. Just a great card. All right, we'll run through these fairly quickly because it's a land base. This is the most flexible in terms of budgetary swapping, because you obviously don't need to be running a Bayou. Just swap this out with another dual land. That doesn't cost you a ridiculous amount of money. Bojuka Bog comes in tapped. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard, and you tap it for black mana. Command Tower, run this. Forbidden Watchtower, this is part of the synergies. It comes in tapped, but you can tap it for white, but you can also pay 1 and white to make it a 1/5 white soldier creature until end of turn. It's still a land, so it's that 5 toughness that matters there. Forest, we're running 8. Godless Shrine, shock land for black white. Isolated Chapel, it comes in tapped unless you control a plains or a swamp, and you can tap for black or white. Murmuring Bosk, This is an interesting one. As it comes into the battlefield, you may reveal a Treefolk card from your hand, which you will have plenty of. If you don't, Murmuring Bosk enters the battlefield. Bosk enters the battlefield tapped. Add black or white. Murmuring Bosk deals 1 damage to you. All right, Overgrown Tomb, Shockland, green and black. Then Plains are running 7. Savannah, of course, it's a dual land. I have them, so I run them. Swap this out for something else if you don't. Swap it out for another tapped duel or a number of other things. Scrubland, same thing. I happen to have the revised version, so let's actually make it the revised version. Oh, where is it? There we go. That's what I'm used to seeing. Again, you do not need to be running dual lands. The true blue OG dual lands. Alright, Sunpetal Grove. Enters the battlefield tapped and lets you control a forest or a plains, which is very likely. Swamps, 6 of them. Temple Garden, shock for white and green. Vault of the Archangel. You add 1 colorless, 2, or you can pay 2 white, black. Creatures you control gain Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. Just a very good utility land. Woodland Cemetery, another dual land. Comes in tapped unless you control a swamp or a forest. All right, now we're into the keister section, the big butt section. All right, and Doran, this just goes very well with. Most of our creatures involve having large amounts of toughness, and this is just a utility enchantment for that. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. This is a definite include with Doran. Target creature with Defender can attack this turn as though it didn't have Defender. This is actually relevant in this build because we have some spell creatures that are defenders. And for 3 creatures you control, get +0/+1 until end of turn. Belbe's Armor for 3. For X and tap, target creature gets -X/+X until end of turn. Just buffing up that toughness on a creature. This is excellent. And it's an artifact, so this isn't something you attach to it. It's an artifact that you do this with. Gorm the Great. Now this is an interesting one. It's a 4-drop for 2/7, and we are not running its partner. Its partner with Virtus the Veiled. When this creature enters the battlefield, target player may put Virtus into their hand from their library, then shuffle. And the reason we aren't running this is because it's an assassin 1/1 that isn't all that relevant in this build, but this 2/7 body is. And the additional Gorm the Great must be blocked if able, and Gorm must be blocked by 2 or more creatures if able. So that will be helpful for sure. For sure. And that's from Battle Bond. And it's a cheapie. It goes very well with Doran because of that 7 body. All right, now we're starting to hit into some Treefolks. Great Oak Guardian, it's a 4/5 flash reach. When Great Oak Guardian enters the battlefield, creatures target player controls gets +2/+2 until end of turn and untap them. Ikra Shaddiq the Usurper. Boy, say that 5 times fast. It's got a big body, 3/7. Menace, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you gain 1 life equal to that creature's toughness. And it too has a partner. You can have 2 commanders if both have partners. That is not relevant in this build. Indomitable Ancients, one of the big ones in terms of the toughness. It's a 4-drop, 2/10 Treefolk Warrior. Leaf Crowned Elder for 4, 3/5 kinship. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may look at the top card of your library. If it shares a creature type with Leaf Crowned Elder, you may reveal it. If you do, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. Excellent. All right. In terms of the big booty, this is mainly a support card. Creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap steps. Mirror Shield. This is a newer one from Theros Beyond Death. This does a couple of things. This buffs up a creature so that it has +2 toughness, and it gives it hexproof. Whenever a creature with Death Touch blocks or becomes blocked by this creature, destroy that creature. So this is a great utility for Doran itself even. So this is just a great include. Oathsworn Giant for 6, 3/4. It is a little spendy in terms of mana, but other creatures you control get +0/+2, and have vigilance. And it has vigilance itself. Sapling of Kolfinor. It's a 5-drop 2/5. Sapling of Kolfinor is indestructible. Yes, please. Whenever Sapling of Kolfinor attacks, reveal the top cards of your library. If it's a creature card, you gain life equal to that card's toughness, lose life equal to its power, then put it into your hand. So this is a dual card because it's indestructible. You can reveal a card, and then you can, in essence, draw that card if it's a creature. So that's great. Silklash Spider, an oldie but a goodie. This is all the way back from, I believe, Onslaught. Yeah. It is a great spider. Silklash Spider may block as though it has flying. Notice it's a 2/7 toughness. And then you can get rid of persnickety flyers with this. X green Silklash Spider deals X damage to each creature with flying. Wonderful. Slagworm Armor for 1. Equipped creature gets +0/+6. Woo-wee. Boy, you're going to be swinging with a lot with that thing on. Spider Silk Armor for 3. Creatures you control get +0/+1 and have reach. Yes, we want a lot of our creatures to have reach, especially some of these defenders that we're going to run into in a moment. Timber Protector for 5, 4, 6. Other Treefolk creatures you control get +1/+1. Other Treefolk and forests you control are indestructible. All right, Tower Defense for 2. Creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain reach until end of turn. Lovely. You can be using that for all sorts of shenanigans on attacking and defending. Now, here's one of those defenders. Tree of Perdition for 4. It's a 0/13. Defender, exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. So, sometimes that might be relevant depending on which opponent you're attacking with, and you want to get them down to 13 life instead of whatever insane amount of life they may have, like a life gain deck or something or the other. Plus, we are running a few cards in here that will make this lose its defender so you could actually swing with it. Isn't that fun? Tree of Redemption. It's a 4-drop 0/13 as well. Defender. It also has exchange your life total with Tree of Redemption's toughness. And this is back from Innistrad. Same thing goes for this. We have a few cards that make this lose its defender, and you can swing with it as well. Otherwise, it's just a great blocker. Not a lot's going to be getting through that thing. All right, Tristani, Selesnia's Voice. 2 green, 2 white, 2/5. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Oh boy, we're not going to be losing too much life. And then it's got Populate. Create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. That one's not as relevant in this build, but everything else about it is absolutely relevant. And I don't remember it from Return to Ravnica, but that's where it's from. Unstoppable Ash for 4, 5/5 trample. Champion a Treefolk or warrior. When this comes into play, sacrifice it unless you remove another Treefolk or warrior you control from the game. When this leaves play, that card returns to play. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, it gets +0/+5 until end of turn. So that is the most important part of this card, is that last part. It gets +5 toughness until end of turn. Wall of Blossoms for 2. It's an 0/4 defender. When Wall of Blossoms enter the battlefield, draw a card. So it's a nice blocker, and you draw a card out of it as well. All right, we are into the removal segment. Exile target non-land permanent. You lose 3 life. Of course. Assassin's Trophy. Destroy target permanent. That means it could be targeting a land as well. An opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle their library. Aura Shards. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Oh, it's a staple, but it is a little spendy, so you could swap this out with something else, although this really isn't a replaceable card. It is a very unique, very awesome card. Deadly Rollick, one of the new kids on the block from Commander 2020. If you control a commander, you cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Exile target creature. Excellent. Dusk and Dawn. Destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. Or, Afterlife, return all creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. Excellent. That's going to work really well with the synergies and the power base that we're running. Putrefy. Destroy target artifact or creature. It can't be regenerated. Slaughter the Strong for 3. Each player chooses any number of creatures he or she controls with total power 4 or less, then sacrifices all other creatures he or she controls. Goes right into the build that's surrounding Doran. Wave of Reckoning, which also does the same thing. Each creature deals damage to itself equal to its power for 5 mana. Alright, we're in the shenanigans section. Alright, Behind the Scenes is an enchantment that works very well in this build and with Doran. Creatures you control have Skulk. They can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. And then also for 5, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn, which you can trigger after you've skulked past a bunch of their creatures. Alright, Crackdown. It is a fantabulous card in this. Non-white creatures with power 3 or greater don't untap during their controller's untap step. Well, that's gonna involve a lot of creatures on your opponent's board. Be careful with this card because there are a very few, but a few cards we are running that do have power 3 or greater that are not white. Nethroi, Apex of Death. This is a unique one in here for a unique reason. So it's got Mutate for green or white, black, and it's got Death Touch Lifelink. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if you're playing this mid-game or late game and you have a lot of your creatures in your graveyard, you're going to be pulling, if not all of them out of your graveyard into the battlefield, most of them. Because most of them are going to have very few power points to it. Sidar Kondo of Jamara. 4-drop, 2/5 with flanking. The flanking part isn't so important. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocking creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Creatures your opponent controls without flying or reach can't block creatures with power 2 or less. And then its partner, you can have 2 commanders if both have partners. Again, that part is irrelevant. Wakestone Gargoyle. One of the ways that we can remove Defender from our creatures when needed. Defender flying, it's a 3/4 4-drop. You can pay 2. Creatures you control with Defender can attack this turn as though they didn't have Defender. Alright, we're in our protection segment. Heroic Intervention, just a staple in green. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Teferi's Protection. It is a spendy card, but it is a worthwhile card. It's a 3-drop instant. Until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. While this is phased out, they're treated as though they don't exist. They phase in before your untap, during your untap step. Exile Teferi's Protection. So, that one's a great one. You should be familiar with that if you're not already. Veil of Summer for 1 green. Draw a card, which is great just that in itself. But on top of that, spells you control can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and from black until end of turn. You will utilize this spell during your commander play. You will absolutely, probably every game you run, you will be utilizing that spell. All right, we are in the draw segment. Abzan Beastmaster for 3/2/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control the creature with the greatest toughness or tied for the greatest toughness, which is most likely going to happen every single time. Beast Whisperer for 4. It's a 2/3. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Enlightened Tutor. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card and reveal that card to all players. Shuffle your library and put the revealed card back on top of it. Of course, this is a spendy tutor. You can always put in a more mana cheaper costing spell like Idyllic Tutor, or you can even run a black cheaper tutor. You do not have to run this card, but it is a good card. Green Sun Zenith. X green. Search your library for a green creature card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Shuffle Green Sun Zenith into its owner's library. Guilt Feeder. This is an interesting one. It's not a Treefolk, but it is interesting. It's got fear, and whenever Guilt Feeder attacks and isn't blocked, defending player loses 1 life for each card in his or her graveyard. Wow, which can be a big deal. And it's an 0/4 body. Mentor of the Meek. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. Necropotence. Just a staple drawing mechanic in black. Almost every black deck should run this card if they got it. If you don't, and it's a budgetary concern, run a Phyrexian Arena or something like that. Skip your draw step. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. Pay 1 life. Exile the top card of your library face down. Put that card into your hand at the beginning of your next end step. Oran Frostfang for 5. It's a 2/6. This thing is nasty. Attacking creatures you control have death touch. Wow, I like it. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it's doing some dual duty there. Runic Armasaur. I run this in almost every green deck I got, and my colleagues do as well for the most part. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that isn't a mana ability, you may draw a card. And it's 2/5, so it's got a 5 toughness, which is great in a Doran build. Vampiric Tutor. If you got it, run it. If you don't, don't. Put in a cheaper tutor. All right, so that is the contents of this build for Doran the Siege Tower. It's a super fun deck to play. It actually can pop off very quickly because you can get Doran out there on even as quickly as turn 2 and just start hitting people. And you can give them lots of protection and lots of support in this build. So there are some budgetary swaps that you can do in our budget section. Feel free to go to the site at Architect, and we'll put it in the description so you can check it out. Thanks for being a friend of the gathering. Please hit the like button. Hit that subscribe button if you aren't a subscriber already. Put comments in the comments. You got a question about something to swap out. If you have a card in mind that you thought would run really well on there, put it in the comments. We love to hear from you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next episode.